All right, well, 2020 season got cut a little short. We had a really good team last year going into the season. We're just really thankful for the opportunity to get to play this spring. And we had a fortunate fall where, a lot of our guys got COVID early, and so we got to practice as a team going into the spring. And so it's just going to be week to week. But we're more thankful to get to play baseball than not getting to play like we did. I think our last game was 340 some odd days ago, so it's been kind of unique in that sense. But we're just thankful and get the opportunity to get to play baseball.
We'll start with questions with Ryan Aber from the Oklahoma.
Yeah, Skip, I want to ask you about Peyton Graham's development. What kind of growth have you seen from him, and what do you expect from him this year that maybe you didn't, or more than what you got from him last year?
You look at Peyton Graham, and he's got instincts. There's a lot of things that Peyton Graham can do on the baseball field. He's got a little bit of raw power. He can really run. He's got a good arm. He can hit. He walked into on our club last year and started early and played really good. And had a lot of success. And I think the expectation is more just the attitude. We expect him to have a good attitude. We don't expect him to walk out and hit 350 with 20 home runs or anything like that. If we build that expectation for him, it's an unrealistic expectation. We just want him to try to take it pitch to pitch and play the game hard. And if he does all those things and be a good teammate, if he does all those things, then all the other individual accolades will take care of themselves. The individual things that he continues to grow are his strength and development, his maturity as a leader going into helping each of his teammates, working hard, and those things are going to continue to be growth for him. So he's fun to watch play because his instincts and his athleticism and his talent are really good.
We know the way that you approach the game mentally, but how difficult is it to manage expectations when you've got a guy who produced the way that he did a year ago, even in limited time with the short season?
Well, it's difficult, and there's no doubt about that, because the ups and downs of seasons as you go through a whole season. Those guys hadn't really played a game in 340 some odd days since the last time. So what we've got to continue to do is just make sure he stays focused on the process of understanding what his routines are, understanding what he does in the weight room, understanding what he does just taking it pitch to pitch. I think that's the separator for him as much as anything in the growth. We can't expect him to be somebody he's not. There's going to be ups and downs in the season. That's what baseball does to you. I mean, it reveals your character, because there's going to be so many highs and lows. And really the game wants you to feel bad. And what you've got to do is just try to stay in an even keel and understand that you're gaining confidence when you're leaving that ballpark. Either your preparation, which is before, or your competitive, which is during, or your after, lessons learned. And so that's what we kind of take from it, and what we teach on from the team side of it and from the individual side of it. What lessons did I learn if I failed that night, and what I learned from that? And so to go back to look at your performance. And so what we try to do is make sure they understand it's just about one pitch. One pitch can change a game. It's a game of inches, and what you've got to do is keep battling at it and keep grinding at it every day.
Appreciate it, Skip.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Eric Bailey with the Tulsa World.
Skip, when you're away from the game, when your players are away from the game for so long, you say 340 games, do their skills diminish? When you got them back, they didn't have a summer of baseball, they didn't have a spring of baseball. How long did it take them to get back into that mode and where they were the previous year?
Oh, I think they diminish a lot. I mean, the thing about baseball is a lot of repetition. So you'll see it when they first get back as they go through. And what we try to do is try to just go into individual skill sets. If we're just working on their hands, their feet, or, crossovers, playing good catch, and all those things, then try to put them in a team aspect. I think the biggest thing is what you've got to do is kind of go back to the fundamentals. And we talk about that a lot as a team. This week is, we did a different deal in the fall. We had like a Olympic deal where they hit wedges from the berm. They played trivia. They played tug of war, just to have fun at what they do. So I asked them, I was like, did you have fun taking ground balls today? Did you have fun in the bunt station? And so the quicker we can get those guys to have fun and to pull for each other, because they've been sitting by themselves in a room or at their house where they're not around their team, like during the summer, they're just by themselves. And that's the way COVID did. We've got to learn how to become a team as fast as we can, and the only way we can do that is to pull for each other and to have fun with each other and give each other a high five. At first you think it's a corny thing because you're showing a lot of energy, but really it's a peer thing where hey man, you look good today. Keep battling at it. Give him a high five when he gets 8 out of 10 bunts down the first base line, or he throws strike one. Make sure you're encouraging them, because you've been sitting in a room and not saying anything for 300 days. And so what you've got to do is you got to try to make sure that you talk to them a lot and visit with them a lot about what are the first 3 letters in fundamentals? Fun. And sometimes baseball is not so fun because you can go 0 for 5. Man, I didn't have fun today, but what I learned from that. And the next day go 5 for 5. It's a fragile piece of ice, that confidence. And what you're trying to do is build confidence every day. And when your teammates are picking you up and they're giving you positive feedback and the coaches are giving you positive feedback, I think that's a separator from everybody else. And so you got to continue to try to work on that growth as you go through it.
Yep, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Go next to Joe Bettner, Norman Transfer. Joe, are you on?
Yeah, sorry, I got disconnected there for a second. Skip, I wanted to ask, I know you guys confirmed that Cade Horton was going to be out, and you've got a lot of good freshmen in this class, but I just want to ask you specifically about how prepared you guys were for maybe an impact that he could have made as a true freshman this season.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt. It's unfortunate for Cade to get hurt. It's probably you got to take a different perspective from it. It's probably helpful that he did, because it's a deal that, you look at it, and that injury is going to happen. It could happen. You pick a ball up and throw it to first base. And you're going to have those kind of injuries as you go through the season. There's going to be up and downs. It's just unfortunate it happened to Cade, because Cade's a really good player. He's the best freshman pitcher I've ever been around, and I've had some really good ones. And he's a really good baseball player, and he's a really good leader as young as he is. And I think that is a tribute to him being a quarterback in high school. So I think, the things that we've got to do is we're going to be supportive, our medical group's on top of it, and you're going to see this more and more as we go through it in the next few years, because of, one, we're going to recruit high-level players. They're going to play in a lot of high-level games as they come through it. They're going to have a lot of baseball games under their belt. And you hear it all the time about guys playing so many games and pitching so many games, and their arm can only last so long. And I think that's the biggest difference as we go through this is what do we learn from those guys? We're going to continue to do the same things that we do, continue to prehab, post work. And, our strength coach does a great job. Tim Overman, Luke Spitt, our trainer, does a great job. Our doctors do a great job. I think that's the biggest difference, is trying to keep those guys on a routine to understand how do you take care of your body. You eat right. I mean, you're only around them in the fall for a period of time for 8 hours a week. And that's 4 hours in individual skill, then 20 hours a week. So you're not with them every day. And so you're trying to teach them a routine of accountability as they go through it. And that's the lessons learned as we go through this for every player to continue to work. But for Cade's, I mean, yeah, we were, not expecting a lot out of Cade, because I think the biggest deal is to go in and just throw him out there, and because he was really good. I mean, he had a lot of poise. We'd never seen him pitch in a game of an environment. That's the only difference. He had a lot of poise. He could throw a fastball for a strike that was really hard, a breaking ball for a strike, a changeup for a strike. He could hold runners. He could field his position. Those three things you have to do to pitch. And he probably would have been a starter for us, as a hitter and as a pitcher. So, losing that guy, it doesn't define our team. Just somebody else has got to step up. And then during these COVID period, you never know from week to week. Hey, you might have 4 or 5 guys out this next week. And so there's going to be a lot of different lineups as we play through it. So everybody's got to be ready to play.
Thanks, Skip.
Go next to Eddie Radosevich with Sooner Scoop.
Hey, Skip, what's going on?
How are you?
Good. Just as far as starting pitching goes, I know you guys obviously lost a lot to the draft, but could you talk about just the development and what you saw over the fall and then into the early part of the spring with Dalton and Luke Taggart, just as far as what they could possibly bring to a weekend?
Yeah, it was different for Luke Taggart and Dalton and the freshmen coming in and anybody new, because you're trying to teach them a lot of things going into it. So you've got to really try to just like, hey, man, you know what? We're going to work on this one thing, holding runners. We're going to work on throwing strike one. We're going to work on your delivery. So there's a lot of things that happen within, a 30-day period that we get to play as a team, and then during individuals. And there was a lot of growth that happened, and it was really good. Losing those guys last year, it was tough, but that's what we're here for. We're here for those guys to come here to graduate from the University of Oklahoma. If they get the opportunity to go play professional baseball, that's great. But we want to make sure that they graduate and move on. And so now we're into developing guys like Dalton Fowler, that was a really good left-handed pitcher, learned about himself, never really lifted weights. All of a sudden he comes in here, he's on a weight program, he's gotten a lot stronger, his delivery's gotten a lot better. Now it's just working on the fine-tune of holding runners, to fielding your position, understand taking it one pitch at a time. And it's the same thing with Luke Taggart. Luke Taggart was at a 4-year school, and they were really good. He was their number one pitcher. He came in, he was a guy that had his delivery was really herky-jerky. We kind of smoothed it out. Didn't want to take too much away from what he really was when he got here, and just try to smooth it out, make him more efficient as he went through his delivery, and so he can repeat his delivery. And then when you put guys in high leverage situation and big environments, if they can repeat their delivery, they're going to be more successful. And then you start trying to breed that mindset of, hey, we're on the attack mode. We're going to attack. And it's going to be fun to watch those guys throw it. There's going to be ups and downs as we go through this. I mean, that whole pitching staff is basically new. If you look at the innings, the guy that probably logged the most innings was Wyatt Oates and Jake Bennett as we go through this, and Aaron Brooks. And so those guys will help those other guys along and be good teammates. And really, it's about their attitude and understanding going pitch to pitch, because there's going to be days that we look really good, and there's going to be days that we don't look as good. And we just got to go out there and think, you know what, today's an opportunity to go out and just try to play good catch with a target. Last year, I worked with a kid named John Curtis. He pitched for me when I was at the University of Texas, unfortunately. But he got to pitch in the World Series, and everybody talks about the Tampa Bay and what they've done. And really what he learned when he got with Tampa is just throwing strike one. How good are we at just throwing strike one? Just simplify it as much as you can going through this process. Throw strike one. And so I think that's the biggest thing that, we got to go in there, just attack, and see what happens.
Offensively, do you guys, I know that you told Kendall that you guys thought you'd be pretty good from a power standpoint. Still kind of feel that way going into the season?
Yeah, I think our offense is really good. We've got a lot of depth. We can go a lot of different ways with our offense. We can get all left-handed or all right-handed. We can put guys that can run, guys that had a little bit of power. We can go several different ways, which is a good thing. And they're more experienced from last year to this year. I think the biggest jump forward for us is to make sure they understand what an offense is. You know, what is an offense? It's about getting on first base, getting to second base, getting to third base, and touching home plate. And the offensive keys, when we go through it, you know, there's hitting, there's base running, there's bunting, and there's bat control. And all those things happen to be an offense, and we got to continue to grow in that area as we go through this. And our defense is the same way. And I think that's going to be the big separator is, you know, I hear a lot of guys talk about, well, you got a lot of veterans back. Well, what do you mean by veteran? That guy played 10 years in the big leagues, 11, 12 years in the big leagues? That's a veteran to me. You're still talking about an amateur. I mean, Zaragoza, he's played a lot of baseball at the University of Oklahoma. There's no doubt. Where he's going to understand is the 60-game schedule. He's going to understand how to maintain a 60-game schedule and not get too high or get too low. I think that's the separator as being a veteran going into it. Understand that, you know, there's going to be days I don't feel as good when I walk out there to play, but I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to give you, if I only have 60%, I'm going to give you 100% of that 60%.
Thanks, Skip.
Thanks, Eddie.
Go next to Josh Callaway with Sooners Wire.
Skip, hopefully everything's going well with you. Just want to ask about the catching situation. Obviously, you know, before you really kind of balanced Justin Mitchell and Brady Lindsley. Now you have Mitchell back, Lindsley's gone. How are you going to balance, you know, having Mitchell, I assume, will catch the bulk of the games for you, but after him with Crooks and Polk, just kind of what's the plan there?
We're going to send our email to you and ask you who we should catch this today or not, and that's what we'll figure out. Now, we have Jimmy Crooks, a catcher that played at McLennan Junior College, a good junior college program in Texas, and we've got a young freshman named Hudson Polk from Coppell. And so I think the leadership that Mitchell provided in the fall with those guys in early spring and what Coach Overcash, he's the catching coach, have done, they've gotten a little bit better as we go through this. And our fourth catcher, if we get in a COVID situation, will probably be Diego Munoz. He worked a little bit last year. He's caught a little bit in the inter-squads this past spring, so I think we're going to continue to work in that sense. You know, Jimmy Crooks is a left-handed hitter, where Justin's a right-handed hitter, and kind of work that system as where those guys can pick each other up. The biggest thing I can tell you, more so than anything, and I'm going to keep reiterating it, I mean, we could walk out there, you know, next Friday and test on Thursday and have half that team. And so you've got to make sure that you're prepared for any situation. And unfortunately, that's just the way our life is today. I mean, I love seeing you guys in this news conference room. Now I'm seeing you on TV, so we got to adjust like you have to adjust. So I think that's the big difference as we go through it. It's just not going to, if we think it's going to go as planned, it's not. And we've got to embrace that. And we've got to really understand that process. I think the COVID period has taught our kids more about process than anything. Process that I got to wake up in the morning, I got to fill a COVID sheet out, I got to go over here to take a test, I've got to make sure I wear a mask, got to make sure I use hand sanitizer, I got to make sure I wash my hands every day. And those things are teaching us process and teaching these young men and women process. And I think we can look and gripe about the COVID, but what are we learning from it? That's the biggest issue. Thanks.
Next question will go to Nick Coppola with OU Daily.
Hey, Coach Johnson. Obviously, we mentioned the loss of Cade Horton and how it could impact the freshman class. I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are on the remaining freshmen now that he's out, and what freshmen could see time this season, in your opinion.
Well, you look at Jace Borfin. I mean, he's really come on really strong through the early springs. He's a good player coming into it. We have 3 freshman pitchers that are continue to learn. being Carson Atwood, Lamb, Jet Lotus, and Carson Thomas. Those guys can continue to learn. We're not going to know how much playing time that they're going to get until what we have this COVID. We might walk out there and those guys have to start on the weekend. We don't know, so we've got to continue to keep growing. And their opportunity every time they walk out there, baseball only gives you an opportunity. That's all it gives you. It's not going to give you anything else every day. And so what are you going to take from that opportunity when you walk out there? You've got to understand that you've got to be in control of yourself. You've got to commit to a plan. Then you've got to compete. And so those guys have done a great job through that as we went through this past fall and early spring. And I don't know if I'm leaving out any other freshmen, but there's going to be a significant role. We always at the University of Oklahoma have played freshmen. And no different than Peyton Graham played last year and Logan Kohler played last year, so it's we're going to continue to do those things and continue to give them guys opportunities and see if they can take advantage of it.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Lee Benson with KWTV.
Hey, Coach, good to talk to you.
You too, Lee.
Just standard thing in sports, obviously, is you look back at the previous season, coaches, players, and you look at how you did, and you kind of set standards, and you think, okay, we can improve on that, and you go from there. But obviously, with you all, you didn't have much of a 2020 season to look back upon. So I'm just curious, just the feelings, or maybe what are some challenges that you've noticed, some new challenges that you never have had before, dealing with the fact that you don't have a standard conclusion to last year to look back on as you prepare for a new season, and then is there any other challenges that are ahead of you that you're kind of expecting to happen? I know COVID's obviously one of them, but any just unique challenges that have come about since you haven't played a game really, and like you said, almost a year?
I think it's a great question because you look at all the challenges each and every day. From recruiting. I mean, we don't get to see these guys play. We've been shut down in recruiting because of COVID. Understandable. And so it's difficult. We got to see some of them play. We haven't got to see some of them play. So that's number one. I mean, you can dissect this thing several different ways. It's like an onion. And so what we've got to do is change our perspective. You can feel sorry for yourself because that's what baseball wants you to do, is feel sorry for yourself because it's a confidence deal. Or you can change your perspective and use it to try to help you keep getting better, understanding what the game is going to give you. And so I think that's the biggest challenge for everything, because you look at it, these kids really hadn't worked in 360 days, 340 days. And so we got to continue to understand that the attitude of picking each other up, those things are going to be a challenge as far as being a team, because baseball is an individual game played as a team. And a lot of I might get drafted. No. If you take care of your responsibility, this could happen to you. That's what you look at day in and day out. And that's the thing that you have to be grounded to every day, and really make them understand what process driven is. If you're process driven and you're hungry to get better every day, you don't look at what baseball, what's happened in baseball with COVID. You're just looking for an opportunity, because really, at the end of the day, that's all it's about. Just what kind of opportunity do I have? Great question.
Appreciate it.
All right, next we'll go to John Hoover with SI Sooners.
Thanks, Eric. Hey, Skip. You mentioned earlier the tug of war and I guess team building activities, and talked about the need to have fun and high five your teammates and pull for each other, that kind of thing. Have you found yourself during the past 10 months or so being more of a team psychologist almost than a coach? And can you describe maybe some examples of how that's kind of manifested?
Yeah, John, it's an unbelievable question. So I'll take you through my career. I was at Navarro Junior College. We got to play 6 hours, get to practice 6 and 7 hours a day. Really thought I knew what I was doing. I understand the teaching aspects of it. of a skill set, teaching a guy fundamental delivery, a guy a mechanical delivery, understanding what his lead leg does with his right arm, understand how all those things. But when I went to the University of Texas, I really thought I knew what I was doing. I didn't understand it. All of a sudden, you had an expectation that was unrealistic, and so I had to learn, and I had to learn from the best coach of college baseball ever, from Augie Garrido and Ken Revisa, the sports psychologist. So how to be in control of yourself one pitch at a time, and we really talk a lot about that because probably over the last 17, 18 years, that's all I've talked about. Repeat your delivery. Now, be in control of yourself. Understand that's your routines. Your routine it's like a green light. Green light means go. And that's your normal routines. You see a guy, when he steps out, takes a breath, he's in his routines. Might do his batting gloves. You see a guy might wipe the rubber off, take a breath. Those are his green light routines. And it's something, then you have one pitch. You're going to either get a bad experience from that one pitch or a good experience from that one pitch. If you have a bad experience, you release it. You get rid of it, and you have a system to do that. You got to make something physical with association. It might be throwing the rosin bag down, finding a focal point, then getting back to green to get to the next pitch, because it's pitch to pitch. It's 100% of what you got to get to the next pitch. So then you have yellow lights and you have red lights. So yellow light means caution. Red light means they might have dropped a fly ball, or they might have booted their second ground ball, or the umpire might have called a ball you thought was a strike. It's the same process going through that release. And you've got to continue to work on that growth. You've got to continue to work on that growth as you go through it. What did I learn? Just like I talked about, are you in control of yourself at practice today? Are you in control of your pitch? What commitment level did you make? And what lessons and when you get competitive, what lessons did you learn from being competitive? Were you in control or out of control? And you write those things down. It might not be the social thing to do, like the cool thing to do, but it's the most competitive thing to do. And you hear all the great golfers, you hear all the great athletes. That's all they talk about is learning about themselves. And you spend a lot of time, like you said, just working on the mental things, because there's two sports at our school that deal in failure. It's baseball and softball. And that confidence is a fragile piece of ice. So you're working on confidence, building it every day. That mindset of building it every day. I mean, every day. And it's so big. I mean, it is so big. When that guy's confident and he's going good, it's like the power of momentum. What you're trying to do is take the momentum out of that dugout. And every one of you guys that are sports writers, y'all seen momentum. You're like, man, how'd that happen? How'd he do that all of a sudden? That's the power of momentum. It's the same thing with confidence. You see the power and confidence, it's an amazing thing. And you're always fighting for that. You're always trying to understand, how do I get to that point? How do I get to that point? And that's the biggest question. How can I get to that point? That was an awesome question, because that's basically how my career, I didn't know anything about it. I just thought you know what, I'm going to grit my teeth and I'm going to throw this ball and I'm going to get in a fight, I'll do whatever. But it's really about being in control of yourself, but still being aggressive. You follow Jason Day, getting in routines. Go back to John Curtis, his first game in the playoffs were against the New York Yankees. All right, he gives up 6 runs. After he got through punching out 3 guys to save the game against the Philadelphia Phillies, and I watched it, I videoed it. He had a routine of moving his arms like this. So I texted him after the game. I said, I know you give up 6 runs. You may not want to talk to me, but here's what I got. And I showed him the video of the last time. I said, you just didn't do your routines. Your routine's what gives you confidence. That's your green light routine. It gives you in control. And all of a sudden, boom, he had a really good rest of the, all the way to the World Series. It's pretty awesome. Great question. Thank you for that.
Thank you. How does all that now, the mental side of the game, project to what you've had to endure and what these players have had to endure for the past 10 months of getting out of their routine and being in COVID quarantine and that routine of testing and all that stuff they've never had to do, all that stuff you've never had to do? How does that correlate?
I think that's what you can do. You can learn from it. It can teach you about that process of understanding what green lights, yellow lights, and red lights are. And I think that can help you learn a little bit more. There's times where you might have to practice. You're sitting in the, I mean, I don't know if you guys have been to Chick-fil-A or Whataburger, but I love both of those places. Man, that line's all the way wrapped around. I'm like sitting there like, man, what's going on? Breathe. Relax. You know, and that's what it means, the same thing. Man, I really want to go out here today. I really want to practice today. Understand it's a process. You know, and that's the biggest thing that these kids can understand. I mean, you almost have to practice it daily. Even in the bullpens, we do it with shadowing, making sure they understand it where it becomes instinctively to them. In taking your first step of a ground ball or making sure you're setting up as a catcher, a fly ball. You know, outfield is one of the hardest positions to play, and everybody's like, Coach, why you're crazy. It's hard. Well, you know what? It's the furthest away from the ball. It's hard to stay focused. I mean, these kids today, they're playing a lot of video games, you know, and so we got to get them understand, get back out and just go out and play good catch, go out and swing the bat, and then now we're talking about mental game. So we've got to really practice it every day, like Coach Van Hook has it around their cage. What's your one thought? What is your one thought? Staying inside the baseball? Because you can't do two things at once. What if you counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and time that, or A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J and time that? So it'd be faster than going A1, B2, 3, C. That's doing two things at once. So that's what we're really working through that whole process as we go through this. Thank you.
Yep, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the last question we have here is from Randy Heights with Franchise Radio.
Hey, Coach. Kendall Pettis is a guy we haven't talked much about, but he was a young man that seemed to start coming into his own towards the end of last season. How has his development progressed during all this time?
Well, Kendall's going to continue to develop. You know, he had a great fall as a freshman. And then went out, and it was, I think Coach Overcash or Coach Van Hook was talking to him the other day about an approach at the plate, how he stuck with his approach, and he gets called upon off the bench against Missouri and hits a home run. And those are, when you bring a guy off the bench and he has a good at bat or he has a bad at bat, you can really understand about what their attitude is. You know, you can really understand it because the game knows. The game knows when you have a bad attitude. I don't know what it is about the game, the spirit of the game. I can't understand it. Coach Garrido talked about it a lot. If you have a good attitude, the game is going to protect you. If you have a bad attitude, the game's not going to protect you. It just happens. And I think the thing that dealing with Kendall is what he's done is he's come so far on his approach on defense, his approach on offense. He's athletic, he's strong, he's a big-time leader on our team. Everybody looks up to him. I think those things are the leadership that he continues because he works extremely hard. I think that's what's been so fun and so, he's like a breath of fresh air. He smiles every day. You know, it's just fun being around him because every day he's like, he reminds me of watching Adam Jones play baseball. You know, I loved Adam Jones. You know, he played with such passion. You know, he reminds me of guys like that play the game so hard. I think he's going to continue to grow and continue to get better because, you know, he's from Chicago where, you know, they didn't play as much as they did Southern guys in Southern states in the fall sometimes. They didn't play that many games. So he's going to continue to grow the more opportunities he gets to play.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Any other questions at all? I think Eric left. Fire away. I get kind of long-winded when I talk about the mental game. I love it.
Good, Skip. Thanks.
Skip, I emailed or I texted Eric and said I'm gonna have to pay you a check for a coach's clinic because You said a lot of things I could teach to my daughter's softball team.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, our job is to try to pass on, stuff to continue to help, others learn from. I mean, I'm not the best pitching coach in the world, never claimed to be. We're just going to try to, the biggest thing I can teach you is to have a relationship. Show them how much you care before you show them how much you know. I mean, that's a big, big, big deal. And I think those kids are, if you show them how much you care before you show them how much you know, you're going to win baseball games. But is it all about winning, or is it all about the process of winning? That's fun. That's what's fun.